Hello everyone, and thank you for tuning in today to Caddy Talk. We will continue our conversation and topic on disabilities, and this week we will be focusing on autism spectrum disorder, also known as ASD. We have a special guest today. Her name is Mrs. C, and she has a lot of experience with ASD as her daughter has a diagnosis, and she'll be sharing a lot of her perspective and everything she's gone through with her daughter so we can get a better idea of what ASD really looks like. So let's welcome Mrs. C. Hi everybody, thank you so much for having me. I've really been looking forward to this topic and being able to share my perspective. So and I feel free to ask any questions you like, and I'm willing to share almost any part of my experience with my daughter. It's great to meet you, and thank you for introducing yourself to me and the audience. First question that I wanted to address, because it is such a big spectrum, I wanted to know from your own experience, what developmental signs of ASD did you notice in E? And were there any in infancy or anything you noticed before she was actually diagnosed? Oh, yes, that's a great question, actually. And it's something that my family struggled with for a while because we didn't really understand ASD very much. So I have two twin daughters. E is one of them. And my girls were born premature at 34 weeks gestation, and they did spend some time in the NICU. So some expected delays were just what we were told was normal. And so that's how we kind of lived for a little while. We started noticing E had a really hard time sleeping. And her sister kind of outgrew that. Then the gastrointestinal problems began very early in infancy as well. And one of the biggest things that I remember is at 6 months, I remember looking at Elle and looking in her eyes, and I felt like she had a very blank stare. I felt like there was no emotion behind her stare, and that's the best way I can describe it. Which that was my first, I think, red flag. Then came the delayed speech, which then she began doing echolalia, which means repeating words as opposed to actually using them to communicate. Did not show interest in playing with children. A lot of parallel play, social awkwardness, and if she did have encounters, they were very brief. And then pica began, which is when you eat non-food products. She ate Play-Doh and sand and dirt and those kind of objects, and that's the kind of experience we had with that. Thank you for being so open and sharing so many aspects of your experience, even though I know it's really hard sometimes to be so vulnerable about it, especially when it's about your own child. So we truly, truly appreciate it, don't we, audience? So moving on from this aspect of it, I wanted to know what Elle's life looks like right now. What characteristics of ASD does she exhibit that we would know if we knew more about ASD? Yes. Currently, Elle has a difficult time with change. We're not very big on routine. We try to be as flexible as we can. But if there's anything that's unexpected or a spontaneous change occurs, she has a hard time and demonstrates behaviors such as crying, stomping her feet, and covering her ears. So that's something she struggles with. Attention is also a problem with Elle, which shows in her academics. And currently, actually, we were able to finally help with the lining up of objects, and that behavior has just almost completely disappeared, which we're very excited about at home. She continues to mouth objects, and one of the big ones is struggles with her emotions. She struggles to demonstrate them, and now as she's getting older, kids are starting to notice that an almost 10-year-old girl doesn't jump up and down and flap her arms when she gets excited. And that's just, before it was just normal and typical and no one really thought much of it. But now kids are starting to notice it, and Elle's unaware that they notice it, but it's something that we're definitely working on. She cries a lot when she gets excited, and she also needs a lot of prompting with daily living skills. At home, luckily my husband and I help her. Her sister is very helpful as well. And she struggles with like changing and bathing and daily routines, and needs lots of reminders and prompting. So we kind of team up to be able to get that done for her, but it's definitely a struggle at home for us. It's interesting to see and to experience all the behaviors and all the different characteristics that a child with ASD can demonstrate. And I think it's amazing that Elle has made so many leaps and bounds, and she still demonstrates a lot of characteristics that are common, but there's progress, and that's what we're looking for, right? So for our next question, I wanted to know, what are her strengths? What do you think is a really great trait that Elle has? Thank you for making it a point to ask about who she is as a person. I can describe her as an extremely sweet girl. She puts a lot of effort into understanding people's feelings, even though it can be something very difficult for her, but she genuinely tries. And she has a passion for animals. I'm genuinely impressed with her extreme knowledge of information related to animals, their anatomy, their care, their environment, so much knowledge. And it's something I hope she pursues. I do see her living independently and having a career. That's my hope for Elle. And maybe even becoming a vet. I hope she continues that. And currently she excels at math. She's her multiplication is definitely a strength. She's highest achieving in her class. And I think that's because of her memory. So those are some of her strengths. Thank you so much for sharing her strengths with us. I have met Elle myself, and I must agree she is a very sweet young girl, and she just loves to share with you. You would never realize that socialization, at least in my behalf, is an issue for her, because she was so open and so willing to interact with me. And she's sweet, and she shows so much passion for animals and insects, and I loved interacting with her. So because she does demonstrate some characteristics of ASD, I'd like to know, what kind of services is she currently receiving? As of now, Elle is receiving speech therapy. She gets 2 sessions outside of school, 1 session in school a week. And she's also receiving occupational therapy. And occupational therapy, they're focusing a lot on her emotions. I think it's called the zone model, where they give her colors to basically symbolize her feelings. So when she's in the red zone, she needs a break. And she'll use that with us, which has been great. She also has ABA services, which they focus on the life skills that we've been struggling with at home. So that's been a great asset for us as well. So glad to hear that she's getting so many beneficial interventions, such as ABA, which is known to be such a wonderful tool and intervention for students with ASD. And OT, speech therapy, all these things are so beneficial, and I am so glad to hear that she is receiving all the services that she needs to excel. Another question, so being that Elle does have autism, how does that impact your family? How does that impact your brothers and sister and her twin sister? And how does that impact you and your husband? Well, I'm going to be honest, a diagnosis is hard for any family. We had a hard time at the beginning. I did feel some relief because I knew something was going on, and I felt relief. My husband, on the other hand, had a little bit of a harder time, a harder time adapting, but we've all become such a support system. And even our kids, we try to communicate with them everything, although they're too young to comprehend everything exactly. We try to be open, and now honestly, it's just part of our routine. The adjustments and the services and everything we take her to, and it's just part of our family, and we're okay with that. Thank you for sharing, and I must say I applaud all the efforts you and your husband have made to have your children understand the characteristics that E demonstrates. I know they're so young, as you mentioned, and it's difficult for them to understand. But also, I like the fact that you are making an effort and putting into terms that they may understand and feel comfortable with. So later, as a transition into when they're older, they can begin to put things together and understand that you did try to make them apart. And I think that is wonderful. I also want to know how it is with school, with collaboration. Have there been problems? Have there been conflicts? And if there have been, how were they addressed and handled? If I'm going to be completely honest, it was getting services for Elle was a very difficult thing for our family, a very stressful time and very emotional time. And just getting her the services she needed before she actually had a diagnosis through regional center was stressful and emotionally distressing and overwhelming. We felt no one was really supporting us. And once Elle received her diagnosis, we got more assistance, but I still felt like I had to be consistently advocating for her to get what she really needed. And it was an unfortunate time, a very sad time for our family. But luckily, we got through it, and now she's in a better place. I truly appreciate you being so vulnerable and being so open with me. I know that this situation must be very difficult. And as a mother, I understand what a huge impact it can have. And thank you for being so open and willing to share with me, even though I can tell that it was a very difficult time for you and your family. And I truly appreciate you sharing that with me. Don't we, audience? Thank you. And I just want to know, since you did have a negative experience, which now you say has been better, as we talk about E and her IEP, how do you believe that the collaborative partnerships between you and the school have been since? I truly hope that you've had a much better experience now.
Oh yes, we have. Currently at the district that E is in, we feel very included. We feel we're very included in the decision-making process, and the IEP team is great at communicating with us and offering the adequate services that she needs and that are making a big difference for her. It's honestly refreshing, especially with the experience we had in the past. And I feel very supported, so does my husband, and when we have had to address any issues with the IEP, any concerns, they've been very responsive to our needs, and we feel very at peace where she is now.
So there you have it, ladies and gentlemen, Mrs. C's perspective and all her experiences and time and difficulties and moments of happiness and just everything that she's experienced with her daughter, all in a nutshell. I feel I learned a lot. ASD is such a huge spectrum, and there are so many characteristics and behaviors and strategies and interventions all thrown into one, and it's so hard to believe that individuals who are so distinct from one another can all adapt to the same characteristics and qualities, and it's just nice to hear a personal approach to it. And I feel that it helped me understand Elle as an individual, and sometimes that's what we need. We need to understand people as individuals rather than what characteristics we expect or what characteristics our textbooks tell us we should be seeing, or interventions that should be working. So every family is different, and I feel that this was very beneficial for me, and I'm sure for all of you as well. And it taught me a lot about not only the background stories, but the emotions and the perspectives that a family member can provide that a lot of our courses or texts cannot do for us. There's a difference between having a personal approach and getting to know an individual as a person, as opposed to what we are supposed to expect from them based on criteria or definitions. And I feel that I gained a lot of experience and a lot of gratitude with this experience as well. So thank you for everyone that's here with us, and thank you especially to Mrs. C. See you guys next time.